Right on.
Did you present Scrum in 2017 at the LCI Congress in Anaheim or Southern California? Did you present there?
I did.
Okay,
Standing room only. That's where I first started.
okay. So I went to your, observed you doing that, and so all I took out from that, I didn't pay attention to it. I was presenting on some other stuff, but
Hmm.
I didn't pay attention to it. Like I said, so first of all, I apologize, but I saw the to do, in progress, and completed with the
Yeah.
stickies, and
You saw something like this, right?
yeah,
Something this simple.
yeah, and so ignorantly, I just said, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you know what that would work great for? That would work great for power upgrades, installing an MRI, a complex area
Yep.
that we have to finish." And so, without even knowing Scrum, and I misbranded it by calling it Scrum, but I would just get these big boards, and we had these specific areas, and start filling out stickies, and we would just meet on it. And your presentation got me started that much on it, and I've been
Yeah.
using that ignorant version for years now. But here's my question. I love the book. I read it. Um, I read
Yeah.
it start
The
to,
book that Jason's talking about is this book right here.
yeah.
My favorite book by one of my mentors.
I loved it. And I also like the little pokes about CPM that he gives in the book. So
He
as
does.
long as we have, I get that we need milestones. But anyway, here I've been thinking about how to do this with functional areas, what we would typically consider our clusters in an integrated environment. When we take it to the field, and let's say $170 million project, we have our functional areas. We'll split up that $170
Right.
million job into three real projects, right? My mind has been on fire of how do we implement Scrum in with the process, to your point, with people that want to do it, right? Not shoving it down their throat. But I
Right.
want to know your thoughts on the ideal application of Scrum in construction. There you go.
Bam. So let's show a picture so that people can see. This is the entire framework here on screen. So I'm showing you've got a backlog, and I teach the Lean Construction Institute. Co-developed a class with one of my friends, Claire, who works at McCarthy, and Stephanie, who works at Rosen Electric, with Kristen Hill's blessing, help, and participation. And we scrummed, Jason. We used Scrum to make the class.
Oh wow.
We scrummed the class, and I got pictures of it. It's in the presentation. It's a 2 hour, very fun, highly charged, animated, hands-on. And in that presentation, I show here's the Scrum framework. You can see all the parts of it. The only thing I need to add to this drawing is the goal. The goal happens right above the product owner's head. So, and to put it in last planner terms, I'm going to demystify it for free since you asked me nicely.
That's awesome.
Backlog are all the things that we know we need to do in order to accomplish the project. Those are called milestones in last planner system. Sprint planning are the things we're going to do now, this next phase of work. That's a phase pool, and we prioritize it to get the best sequence possible. Now, the difference in Scrum is we don't calendarize it and create that weekly work plan or look ahead schedule, but the sprint time box is when the team is pulling things off of that sprint planning or phase pool, for those of you that speak last planner, and they're pulling it into one thing doing at a time, not multitasking. Now, they can work together if multiple people are working on the same thing. And the daily Scrum is exactly like the daily huddle, except that it is 15 minutes or less,
Mm-hmm.
and you answer 3 standard questions. I'm not going to even say what they are right now this second. In the review, you look at what the team actually got accomplished with the stakeholders. So that means in construction speak, it's done, all the way done. No takesies, backsies, no punch list. It's completely done, installed right, or designed right, fully coordinated, so the next design team can use it and it's coordinated. Done means coordinated, ready for use. Next person in line can use it. In the retrospective, there we have that learning conversation like we do in Last Planner. You see all 5 conversations, should, can, will, did, learn, happening on this drawing. And in that class, I put the LPS parts right on there so people can see exactly where they are. Here, this is what happened. When they were developing LPS, Hal Makeover, a lot of people know who Hal is, he sent Kristen Hill to get trained as a Scrum Master. And then she brought that back as they were starting to make Last Planner System something that can be taught out for the general public. Taking what Glenn and Greg did, Greg Howell, the 2 co-creators of Last Planner, and making it a pull system like it was always meant to be. The two are very similar. And I've had conversations with Jeff Sutherland as well, and I said, we have something very much like Scrum in the design and construction industry that also came out in the 1990s. Magical time, the 1990s. All kinds of cool stuff was coming out. And like a good boy in construction, I didn't realize that it was there until 20 years later. Because that's how long it takes for stuff to get to us almost. Right? So that's the full system. Now, to go to answering your question, like, how would a team pick this up? The way that I understand Last Planner system, I had this told to me by a superintendent. I was on a project where the reason I was there was to do a Last Planner facilitation, and we do a little bit of onboarding. Now, the project team knows Felipe is a Scrum Master. We want to learn Scrum too. So we're going to do like a 1 hour, what is Scrum? So I covered all the stuff that's here, and I told the team too, like, this is a good book. If you want more information, pick up this book, but I'm going to cover here quickly in an hour. And there's even videos on YouTube that tells you the entire Scrum framework in 2 minutes.
Yep.
So at the heart of it, it's a pull system designed to let you deliver value very fast, exponentially faster, because it's got feedback loops built in. There's all kinds of good stuff, and I do it better justice. If anybody wants to get deeper on Scrum, hit me up in the comments or message me. We'll talk more, and I can point you to more resources even than just Jeff's Red Book. But teams could pick this up and use it with LPS.
Mm-hmm.
And so the superintendent, to go back here, it was the second time we were doing Last Planner facilitation with this particular superintendent. His name was Dan. And on his team, we did Scrum in the morning. And I was like, animated, excited. This is before COVID. So we're all together in the same big room. And I'm like making noises and yelling, and I'm, talking smack on critical path schedules. And so he comes out and he sits down and he participates. And then we go through, we get done, we take a short break, we do the Last Planner session with the trades. We pull 6 weeks out of the schedule like magic and just give it back to the superintendent as his float, for the whole project team, not just his, but, he can claim it. It's his. He can have it. So we pulled the schedule in 6 weeks faster. That job finished 2 months ahead of schedule later. But that day, the superintendent said to me, he's like, I understood Last Planner system. I thought I did. But when I saw what you showed in Scrum with the pull system and then going through the facilitation with Last Planner, I really understood Last Planner better because of the Scrum training you gave me this morning. And I said, wow.
Yeah.
That I've never heard that before.
No, I think you're spot on there. And I don't have all the terminology memorized off the top of my head like you do, but the point system for the activity, for the tasks, basically.
Oh yeah.
That says to me, let's not just keep the time, but let's gain time collaboratively together. It's almost like I think you're spot on, because Last Planner, right, I think we, just like with Christianity and paganism, that's just an example. I'm not getting political or religious, but you absorb this old system. I think Last Planner absorbs the old Gantt chart CPM system of not thinking about can we optimize this, right? Are we doing the most important things? Do we have total participation? And so Last Planner just ends up being like a modified version of the same old thinking that we've had, versus, like you said, or the superintendent said, if you come from a Scrum background or understanding, then I think Last Planner becomes we can gain on this schedule. We can still gain and have a flow. Are we doing the most important things, and are we huddling together in proximity? I think that's such a good point, and I hope everyone gets that. I mean, fantastic. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, thank you. And I remember, I want to share something that Greg and Glenn told me, when I was interviewing them and we were arguing about Last Planner in the early days when I still didn't know it as well as I do now. And they said they invented Last Planner system in response to critical path method schedules like we know today, Gantt charts.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they wanted the problem they were trying to solve when they first did it. And I think there's a great talk on YouTube that Greg does where he talks about this. The problem they were trying to solve is they're trying to make it easier for people to update and use CPM schedules.
Yes.
They didn't set out to eliminate CPM schedules originally. Now later, you can completely build a job without a CPM schedule. And I've talked to one of my friends at the Project Production Institute, and there's a whole army of people that know that you can build a project, a complex project, $1 billion plus a $10 billion job without a CPM schedule.
Yes.
It can be done, and people have done it. People have done it. Yeah. Shout out to you, Gary, if you're listening to my show.
And
Gary knows what I'm talking about.
we have to go do coffee or something to talk more and more about it. I totally agree.
Yeah.
When an owner tells me I want the P6 printout at a level 4 level of detail, and then the XCR file, I'm like, oh, for the love of all things holy, like, do I have to go through this again? And want day-to-day scheduling 8 months from now. I'm like, we're professional guessers. Like, I guess that's all we're here to do. We and so I totally agree. And when I look at the system, I don't want to oversimplify it, but because I feel like whether it's milestones and Scrum, milestones and last planner and Scrum, or whatever, or tact planning, I do believe, and I know for a fact, we can run a job, and they do it, overseas and a lot of different places. They run an entire project without CPM. Totally bought in. When a response to CPM for me, so that we avoided crash landings, the step one was to start with a tact plan. I'm not preaching this or advocating. I'm just saying where my mind is, so you can help me with the Scrum piece.
Okay.
We've started with the tact plan to show realistically what's it going to take, what's the end date. Like, let's at least identify the end date and not have that 20% difference between what we can sell and what we can actually build. Let's just start there, and let's make sure CPM doesn't do a forward and backward pass and run your flow like this, backwards and forwards and backwards. Let's make sure at least you have a realistic flow, right? And then if there are areas that run nicely on tact, I usually leave them in those modified systems, and then focus last planner or Scrum, whether you want to say from the critical path or you want to not say it like that, but the most critical items. I see Scrum coming in. I could see a functional team saying, here's the overall project following nicely this tact plan, but the elevators, the MRI, the electrical upgrades, we've got 3 Scrum teams. I'm probably using the terminology wrong, but we got 3 Scrum teams working daily to advance that and to advance on that. Whereas the old critical path was like, oh, that's my critical path. I'm not going to do anything about it, but that's my critical path. I can see it. You know what I mean? I feel like Scrum is the answer. Scrum is the answer to how do you attack your most critical path. And so I'd like you to coach me, criticize me. Am I off base on us being able to use Scrum to really focus and optimize on our most critical portions of the job? Is that off base?
That's the same question that people. I have some friends now at Scrum Inc., Jeff's consulting company, and we were on a call. We had 50 people on the call, and I got asked that same question. And I said, so far, I've been using Scrum for over half a decade. I have yet to find where it doesn't work. And I said, I'm trying for you, Jeff, to find where it doesn't work. But so far, everywhere we've tried it, it's worked.
Yeah.
And it's helped people to deliver faster with less effort. The key is, you need a person that really knows the process. And in the Scrum framework, that's the Scrum Master. And it doesn't have to have that name. Like, there's even Scrum for education, and in the education system, in that adaptation, spearheaded by a guy named Willie Wygans he's in the book. He's in Jeff's Red Book. He's on that section about Scrum used elsewhere, where he transformed an entire school system. Today they call the Scrum Master a team captain. So for those of you, just imagine what a team captain does. A team captain, for most sports, actually plays, whereas a coach doesn't play. So a team captain plays in the game with the team. A good Scrum Master plays in the game with their team. I mean, there are some Scrum Masters that full-time do that, and they don't actually do what the team does. That exists. That's out there too. Yeah. But think in construction, the teams that we already have, and they are teams. You have a team that's doing just change order work. You have a team that's just doing TI. You have a specialty team that's energizing a building. And it's more than just the electrician. There are other trades, believe it or not, electricians, that help you to energize a building. If you didn't have 4 walls, or and it's something to stand on, you need a building too. And there's all kinds of good jokes about that I'm not doing justice to. But it can be used, Jason. 100% it can. I have not seen where it can't, and we see now with a lot of the integrated project delivery teams that are doing target value delivery. That's a mouthful. The IPD teams doing TVD. They use Scrum in their cluster groups, or what some teams call project implementation teams. And they're just they don't know that they're using Scrum. And they're not. They're using a lot of aspects and parts and pieces. It's only a couple more things to do. Scrum, as by design, is supposed to be the smallest amount of management bureaucracy possible
Yeah.
to enable team workflow so that you can deliver value. It only has 11 rules. That's it. In 11 steps, you can nail it. They don't even say 11 rules. They say 3, 5, 3. So we have 3 roles, 5 events, and 3 artifacts. That's the 3, 5, 3 of Scrum. Yeah, I'll edit that to make it look beautiful.
I've got to have this.
3 roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 roles, and this is from my friends at Scrum Inc. 3 roles, 5 events. 5 events are just 5 meetings. 5 meetings, and 3 artifacts are 3 things that we can see to help us. So a lot of teams that are doing TVD, they might have, everyone's got their own title. So the titles are all over the place. So they're on the team.
Yep.
Do they have these 5 meetings? Right? So the 5 meetings are right there. Arguably, they have most of them.
Yeah.
A lot of teams don't look at, they don't plan enough to see like what's coming down the pike. And that's where that backlog is so critical that helps teams propel forward. And then the retrospective is also special because I just did one today with an IPD team in Colorado, Jason. You would have been so proud. I ran it just like a Scrum retrospective.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
We asked people like, what's working well, what's not working. And I said, in order for this not to be talk, we have to look at what experiments are we going to do to change the things that aren't working. And people are like, what do you mean? I was like, don't worry, we'll do it together. So we identified like 5 things, and we ended up having 7 experiments. And I just got an email not even 2 hours ago from the team saying, here are the 7 experiments. This is the first one we're going to do. And I said, oh, man, it's working.
That's awesome.
They're going to learn together. And it was awesome. And like they're getting that much closer to doing Scrum. And I've worked with teams in design construction doing Scrum, over 10,000 individuals and teams and counting. But these are the things that you need. And Scrum is meant to be iterated on. You don't have to start on day 1 with the 353, your certified Scrum Master. You don't have to start that way. If you're not doing a daily huddle right now, start with a daily huddle.
Yeah.
That's a super easy place to start. So because you're going to ask me like, what do I expect somebody to do based on what I'm showing here? Like, number 1, let's create flow. Make a simple backlog to do, doing, and done list, just like Jason did when he came to my presentation in 2017. Look at it. It's 2020, Jason. We're still talking about Scrum.
Yeah.
That stickiness means it works.
It works.
It's working. It's sticky. Like you want to do it. When you do this, Jason, you saw with your teams going after hard work, you were able to let work flow. It enables flow. It's visual. Just like we learned. Jeff told me, he said, one of the most important things for people to understand how Scrum works is they need to understand Lean. He said that just like 2 months ago. He's like, Felipe, people need to understand Lean better so that they can have really good Scrum.
Yeah. And
so like,
go ahead.
That's another book. I just want to plug, this book, 2 authors here. This is Lean. This really talks about, in a meaningful, easy to understand way, how to improve flow on your projects. I highly recommend this book. And this book has been used in many industries, including healthcare, but there's a lot of construction examples. It's written for construction people.
Yeah.
So check this book out. This is Lean. Check out the Red Book if you want to learn more, and definitely subscribe to Jason's podcast, my podcast. Hello. And, just in case you're like, how do I stay in touch with you, Felipe? Well, let's make it visual, just like we do in Scrum. You can get me here. You can get me here, or you can subscribe to the podcast. It's on YouTube too. If you like this video and you don't want to listen to it while you're driving, check it out right there. Many ways to consume, because we want to make it visual, make it easy to get people engaged and have some great experiences. Right, Jason?
Right. Totally agree. And in fact, this is Lean. I've direct messaged on LinkedIn the authors 2 or 3 times asking them for permission to record it on audio so I can send it to people with no avail. But it is fantastic. And I'll give you some commitments. I'll take the Scrum Master training after I read the book that you recommended. When in pre-construction, I'm using Scrum now, and it's going to be a mainstay in everything I do. It's fantastic. And so you've changed a portion of my life to make it more remarkable and faster, relevant, and just thank you. So there you go.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's what I do. And just like Jeff, and for those of you that don't know, Jeff gave the framework with Ken Schwaber, the co-creator of Scrum. It's free. It's in the public domain. Like, we'll put a link to the Scrum guide in the show description. So if you want to read, the guide's going to be published brand new It's coming out, I think, this week. I'm going to a webinar on Thursday this week when this goes. We're in the second week of November. The Scrum Guide is going to go from 19 pages down to 12. It's getting shorter.
Wow.
It's getting shorter, so I can't wait to get deeper into it. And there's even an audible version of the Scrum Guide, Jason, so you can listen to somebody read it to you.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a flash drive and just ask you to download everything. Do you have time for one more question before we close out?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to touch briefly on you did this in the Lean blog, which I thought was fantastic. You repeated, which is appropriate. Patrick Lencioni says you have to repeat it over and over and over for people to get it. You repeated probably 30 different times. You can't force. You have to do it when people want it. And so here's what I'd like to share, because I'm going to use the latter half of this audio on my podcast. You can use the whole thing on yours or whatever. But I really want to know. I want to know your thoughts on that, so we have a deeper understanding and can learn from some of your pain points that you mentioned. Also, knowing that I'm kind of a bull in the china shop. I'm more of Dean Graziosi says marketing is about repelling people that don't like your brand and attracting those that do. The people that like me are the ones that want to go fast, break things. They want to be pulled out of their comfort zone. I must and will and commit to having more connection like you do to everyone by focusing on when they're ready and asking for it. So would you talk a little bit about that before we close out?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I learned that lesson the hard way, Jason. When I first got into this, I was, working over 100 hours a week, 7 days a week. I was on a classic trajectory to burnout. And there was a director had given a presentation at McCarthy, and he said, he shared all these lean manufacturing things. And the people, back in those days, it was the, late 2000s. They just weren't interested because we were a successful company at the time. We were doing just fine. And here's this person trying to show us a different way to do things. And people are like, no, we're going to resist that. We're a very traditional organization, still are in many ways. We've got, we're old, 150 plus years in business. So we've survived. We've got some survivability. There's some good things there, but he hit me just at the right time. He said at the end of the talk, he'd showed like these examples. He had some of the people from his projects talk, and the one thing that I saw in the people that were working on his jobs is that A, they were all happy. And I was like, and they didn't, and B, none of them looked tired. And I was drinking at the time, like I lose track, but I think I was like a cup 13 or cup 14 of coffee to stay awake after working, the past 7 days and then coming in for an all day conference and sitting down. It's tough to work all day and put that kind of hours in and sit still. It's really tough. Like you see people in the construction industry. I've even heard this from people helping LCI with their annual Congress. The hotel people tell me never in the history of any conference we've ever done has anyone drunk as much coffee as people in the construction industry. What's wrong with you people?
That's funny.
I was like, we work a lot of hours. So I went up to the gentleman, his name was Mike, after his talk, and I said, Mike, something is going on here. Like, I don't know what it is. I want in on it. And he said, Felipe, you have to read a book. We have a little group that we get together. And if you want to understand what we're talking about, you have to read a book. And I said, no, I'm not going to read a book. I told him, no, I'm not reading it. And he said to me, he's like, okay, you don't have to. He's like, but then you can't join. And he said, or you can join. He said, and then he said, well, he's a really nice guy. He said, or you can join, but you won't know what we're talking about. And he's like, I want you to join and be successful. And then he talked to me about, he's like, I've heard that you do good work, but it looks like you work a lot of hours. Yeah. And he's like, what does your family think about that? And I said, okay, Mike, you got me. What's the name of the book? And I got the book, that night I went home and ordered it. I didn't have, any kind of cool app on my phone at the time. So I had to go home and order it the old fashioned way. And the book was Lean Thinking by Womack and Jones, which again is not a construction book.
Yeah.
It's an outside. And in the first chapter of that book, Womack beautifully talks about 3 different things: value, non-value add, and pure waste. And with those 3 concepts alone, and talking to the people in this group, within 2 weeks, I gained 40 hours back of my life.
Wow.
I stopped working nights and weekends. And it only happened because he hit me at exactly the right time with exactly the right question that would make me do something different. He interrupted my habits. So when I tell people, and he wasn't enthusiastic, like he will not go down in the history for being a great public speaker. Like he doesn't have any TED Talks.
Okay.
And he since doesn't even work at our company anymore. But I remember that, and I tried it the other way, Jason, where I tried saying, like, I've got the silver bullet. And people even said, Felipe, we know you have the silver bullets. You can kill the werewolf that's attacking this project. But I don't have the silver bullet. You have to meet people exactly where they are. I've learned it the hard way. I tried it once before. I went to a job, and I thought I knew what they wanted, and I pushed something on them, and I was never invited back again. And it took me 4 years to repair the relationship with the project director so that we can start to work together again.
Okay.
So like I always tell people, like, I learned that lesson the hard way. And there is a time and a place. And I'd say, like, if you're about to get hit by a bus, please put your hand out and stop the person from, getting murdered, by a bus buzzing down the highway. But I was like, well, most of what we do isn't that serious.
Totally agree.
So instead, be curious. I bring a ton of enthusiasm, as you know. When I'm on sharing what we're doing and I'm engaged with project teams, I am exactly like this with the people I work with every single day. Whether it's the CEO, the COO, the CFO, or somebody, digging a ditch. I'm the same enthusiasm all the way up and down the chain because they're all part of the magic that makes buildings come to life and the projects for the owners that need these things to solve their business problems. So that's what I bring.
Fantastic.
And sometimes you have to you got to be quiet and just listen to people. But now it's not the time because you asked me, so I'm gonna keep on. And I was like, so I learned that, and you start to get better like when you practice it, Jason, because there is sometimes, and we talk about this, and I teach A3 methodologies as well. And there's times where you have to dictate the standard to people to get them repetitions and experience. So we create what I say, we set up the environment so they can experiment, right? And as the one controlling that, we can set the environment so that it's a safe, healthy place where they can actually experiment, make small failures, mistakes, and learn. And then we very quickly say, no more templates, now iterate and make it your own. And these people have taken off, blown my mind, the amazing things that have happened. I've had many people, because of this approach, Jason, have come to me and said, I was going to leave the construction industry, and it's because of these engagements and what we've done that I'm staying in, and I love coming to work every day. And I was like,
wow, that's fantastic.
Why.
That's why we do this. That's our why. Well, for me,
it's a long answer, but that's the answer.
It was fantastic, and I know we're out of time, but I'm glad we were able to cover that. That's perfect. And just a little bit of quick feedback for you. It might sound cheap because I'm directly on a podcast, interview with you, but the work you're doing, Felipe, is fantastic. Your approach is fantastic. The way you're able to connect and have the humility and connection and expertise all together. And I just want you to know, wherever you are, if you ever get sad or whatever, just know that Jason's got his pom-poms all the way over here in Phoenix rooting for you. Thank you for everything you do. It's remarkable.
Yeah, and likewise for you, Jason. You make me think and see things differently. And I 100% respect your approach. And we need people like you too, because you got to trailblaze. It's something different. And you're going to interrupt and catch somebody in a certain way, and I'm going to interrupt and catch somebody. And we want the same thing. We want people to have fun doing what they do every day. And it's great work. Let's have more people come into our industry and join in this great work that it is.
I love it. On we go.
Let's do it.